Good evening. Welcome to the Cheltenham Borough Council Planning Committee, being held on Thursday the 19th of March 2026. My name is Councillor Garth Barnes and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues are resolved. If you are here to make a representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of the sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery, and the recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. Please note, a fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. Right, agenda item 1, apologies. I've had apologies from Frank Allen, and Councillor Jackie Chellen is standing in to represent as a substitute. No other apologies. Declarations of interest, item 2, are there any? Nope. Item 3, declarations of independent site visits. Are there any? Nope. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting, held on the 19th of February. Are you happy that there are a true record of what took? Sorry, Simon.
Yes, I might be wrong because I would have been very jet lagged at the time, but I don't think I was present, and I'm down here as present.
I distinctly remember you weren't present, but I thought we gave your apologies. So
Right. Okay. I would have been very jet lagged had I been there.
Yeah. Well, we'll amend that to be apologies rather than being there. I'll sign them when that's been done. Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, public questions. Hi. Yeah. We need to take a vote on the minutes, so all those in favour with that one change, please show. Oh, we're doing it on the, oh, sorry, yes, we're doing it on the, let's go for it. 1 abstention, 6-4. That's not everybody.
Why wasn't it?
To 8. You've abstained, have you?
Yes.
So we're missing some. We're all right? Oh, wow. It's approved anyway. Thank you very much indeed. Public questions, there aren't any. So we move on to our applications that are before us. Item 6A is Dowdeswell Park, and I'll ask Michelle to present it to us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application proposes a change of use of an agricultural building to a paddle centre, together with associated alterations, a pedestrian access and footbridge. And the application is before the committee at the request of Councillor Angie Boys. So the site is located to the north of the A40 London Road, outside of the principal urban area and within the Cotswold National Landscape, or formerly AONB. The site's also located within Cheltenham Kings Parish and falls within Battledown and Cheltenham Kings wards, the ward boundary crossing the site. The River Chelt runs to the south of the site, or south of the building, and a public right-of-way to the north. So the existing structure was quite recently constructed as permitted development for agricultural purposes. And then this is the view of the building from the car park at Dunkerton's, which is a popular mixed-use commercial and leisure venue. So the existing building is understandably utilitarian in its design, comprising a steel portal frame set on a concrete base. And whilst only recently constructed, the planning statement that accompanies the application sets out that a change in circumstance means the barn is no longer required for agriculture. Although currently open-sided, timber cladding to a single elevation of the building was proposed as part of the prior approval application. So as previously noted, the site's within the national landscape, and views of the building are available from a public footpath running to the north of the site. So these are just comparison site plans to demonstrate that the overall footprint of the building will not be increased as part of the development. And then this image just shows in a bit more detail. So the main entrance to the building would be located to the east, with a raised timber-decked walkway to the south connecting to the proposed footbridge over the river. So the proposed layout would provide for 4 indoor paddle courts, together with associated reception area, kit hire facilities, breakout areas, changing rooms, and a small mezzanine viewing area. And close by the entrance, there would be 8 Sheffield stands for 16 cycles, with car parking available in the existing car park to the south of the river. So externally, the building would be clad in vertical timber cladding with the existing metal roof retained. Only limited glazing is proposed to the south and east elevations, together with an external timber escape stair to the east. And the limited palette of materials proposed and the resultant building would ensure that the building continues to be appropriate in this rural location. Additional detail in relation to materials and finishes, together with details of any signage or external lighting, can be secured by condition. The proposed footbridge crossing the river, which is shown on the left, is simple in its form and simply comprises a timber truss bridge on supports set within the riverbank. So outside of BNG requirements, the applicant's proposing to plant 36 trees to the north of the building, which would help limit long views available from the public footpath. And these trees would be in addition to 36 trees proposed in connection with a separate application for the creation of a terrace seating area. The detailed planting specification could be secured by condition, and the wording of the condition was set out in the latest update. And the tree planting would need to be carried out prior to first beneficial use of the building, as if it were to be approved. So in this instance, the change of use is considered acceptable in connection with the wider use of the site, with policies within the development plan and the MPPF supporting such development. The resultant building will continue to be appropriate in this rural context, and therefore the visual sensitivities of the area would not be harmed and the wider landscape would be preserved. And officers are satisfied that the planting of the 36 new trees would further the statutory purpose of conserving and enhancing the natural beauty of the national landscape. The scheme is supported by the council's ecologists, subject to conditions, and no objection is raised by Natural England or the Environment Agency. Similarly, the local highway authority raised no objection, and no significant harm to the amenity of neighbouring land users would occur. Recommendation, therefore, is to grant planning permission subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement. And then, so we've just got a list of the conditions. So in addition to the standard conditions relating to the commencement of development and approved plans, the conditions require the submission of a number of additional details. And there's a condition to control the hours and the future use of the building to prevent it being used for other purposes within Class E. And the 106 is required in relation to biodiversity.
Thank you, Michelle. We have 3 speakers, an objector, the applicant and the ward member. You all have 5 minutes to speak, and I will time you and advise you 30 seconds before the termination of your speech that you have only 30 seconds left. So, and I will be strict on my timings, and I hope we can all do it within the 5 minutes. So the first objector is Laura Bayston, and if you are going to speak, if you come to the chair, thank you very much indeed. Just give me a second and I will get my timing up. So whenever you want to start.
Okay, so thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak today. I'll be honest, I had hoped not to be here at all, and that our request for an informal face-to-face conversation with Mr. Dunkerton or a representative to just respectfully discuss our concerns would have been welcomed, but sadly that request wasn't fulfilled, so here we are. My husband and I combined have lived at a neighbouring property with adjacent land to Mr. Dunkerton's for well over 30 years. And we're both, as I'm sure Mr. Dunkerton is, very, very proud of the countryside that we maintain. It's a small area of the Cotswolds, but its wildlife and its views and its public footpaths are truly precious. And they are deserving of protection so that hopefully it will continue to flourish for the many generations to come. As close neighbours, we've witnessed the conception of Dunkerton's Park over the last 6 or so years. And aside the occasional loud music, much of its development has been very positive, which we've happily embraced and enjoyed many a time with our friends and with family. And we absolutely agree that Dunkerton's Park is a quality, unique venue that offers much to our community and the many young staff it employs, which honestly is brilliant. However, this objection is about our shared local environment. It's about protecting and preserving the national landscape, a place within our community that's free for all to use and enjoy without cost or compromise. This potential commercial venue, which is to be repurposed from a brand new, seemingly unfinished agricultural barn standing for less than 1 year, built with intentions of being for farm use, yes, shouldn't really be clearing established woodland boundaries. It shouldn't be upsetting wildlife habitats, ancient river corridors, views. It shouldn't be doing any of this under the guise of it being good for the community. Okay, because no matter how nice it might look or how much money is spent, nature and its wildlife doesn't appreciate our view, our human view, on aesthetics, because nature is messy. We're aware there's to be some replanting of trees that were removed in response to the Ecology Report's request, but we doubt it will be sufficient, not for at least decades, in its aid for lost habitats, visual screening, light pollution and additional noise, especially as plans state the business will be in use for 7 days a week, 16 hours a day on average. We have no objection at all, and we don't, to the plans as a concept, but feel other commercial land at Dunkerton's Park should and could have been considered first, before allowing an 87% biodiversity loss of AONB for the construction of paddle courts, which on studying the plans was seemingly always the intention and not a building of agricultural use. Now, this method of legitimately getting around planning or loopholes, which I'm sure was advised, is misleading. It is. And it points to an assumption that the agricultural barn was constructed under false pretences, perhaps, maybe, for fear of its true intention being rejected. So our fear as neighbours is that if change of use permission is granted for this development as submitted, this approach may set a precedent to Mr Dunkerton to further expand his site. Seeing ideas or seeding ideas for the construction of additional agricultural buildings under the permitted development rule to then apply for change of use once in situ, thus damaging even more of our AONB, which once gone is gone. It's also worth considering that any permissions granted for this venue would, I'm sure, increase the value of the site considerably, a clear benefit to its owner. Personally, with us owning adjacent fields, it is concerning, it's a worry, where does it stop?
30 seconds.
Thank you. What are the plans for long term? And ultimately, it does feel like a legitimate mockery is being made of the planning rules directly under the noses of the very people who implement them. Now, I hope I'm wrong, because ultimately it's just sad to see an area of AONB land which is supposedly protected by law but actually can just be bought, dismantled at will, its wildlife habitats and view permanently altered, all for a person's commercial gain and profit because they can. Personally, I just hope
Can you bring it to a close, please?
Thank you. I just hope personally that more long-term thought is given to what makes the Cotswolds, Charlton Kings and Cheltenham's continuing diminishing countryside special. And this aids any decision. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to ask Mr Dunkerton to come and address the committee. You have 5 minutes, and I will warn you at the end.
So obviously that was a very impassioned speech there, and I appreciate everything that's been said, but I don't think there's a real understanding of the facts. So I'll start with what I do in that area as a total area. We own and have bought 250 acres of that area. In Dowderswell Woods, I've been taking back all the conifers and planting deciduous trees and creating natural environments. I'm working with the Environment Agency to try and make the reservoir come back to life, because I don't know if you saw that when it was drained recently, there is just a mud bath there. So what I want to do is actually bring back a whole nature reserve, a wild wetland nature reserve there. It is difficult to sort of counter factual, ineffectual, or what I say, facts that are incorrect facts. So I'll just focus on what is here. First of all, I'd like to thank the officers involved for recommending the passing of this. That's brilliant. It's about £1.5 million investment in that area, creating more jobs and delivering what the public patently need and want. And if we go through the points, point by point, noise, there are no near neighbours, it's a fully enclosed building, the environmental health has absolutely no issues with it whatsoever. The landscape, we'll be planting trees all along there, and there is no limit to what I am prepared to do to bring back and enhance the site, which, if you remember, the site was a derelict, defunct building site. It was a completely unused, unloved 9.5 acres of development, and now it is a beautiful, vibrant tourist attraction. It's bringing in thousands of people to the town. It's loved by the community. People of Charlton Kings absolutely love it. It's been quoted in all sorts of ways to be the most positive thing that's happened to Charlton Kings for years. So the landscape and the planting of trees for the screening from the north is absolutely guaranteed. The trees were actually removed because of ash dieback. So again, that is just, I'm sad to say, just a bit of misinformation that's gone out there. I had to take those trees down, so because that is what we're required to do. Flooding, there is no flooding. Highways and traffic, there is no objection from highways because we've got plenty of parking. Ecology and BNG, and thank you for the support from the ecology officer and the new ecology officer who's made this a much easier process. We're enhancing habitats, at least 10% BNG secured on the site and nearby. Hundreds of new trees already planted with thousands to follow. We're enhancing the river environment, and I want to bring back meandering and meanders into the river and actually really bring it back into something that we're all proud of and is exciting and beautiful, all the way through to the top of Dowdeswell Woods. And then I'm just going to finish with Balcarras School. So Balcarras School, I don't know if you're aware, but I built at my own expense the music department there, and I'm very proud of what we've done for that school. In this application and in this project, we are giving free lessons to Balcarras students. So I don't know if you've read that part of this application. I really want to look to work with the local community to deliver something that is exciting and useful and enhancing for us all. And these are the words from Dominic Burke, the headmaster.
You do have 30 seconds.
Enhance youth engagement with free school access and coaching through allocated lessons, stimulate local economic growth through hospitality and community footfall, reuse existing structures responsibly, preserving the environment, become a paddle event and tournament venue to put Cheltenham firmly on the map, and promote sport as part of a healthy lifestyle. So all these things are hugely positive. So again, I will thank you for your support and appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. And now, can I ask Councillor Custade come forward as the ward member?
Thank you, Chair. Had this application been in a sustainable location in my ward, such as the industrial estate where La Boulangerie Artisan is located, then I would be welcoming it. That would be a sustainable location in ecological, landscape impact and travel terms. My issue is not with the idea of a paddle centre, but the location, which has the highest level of protection under planning rules. Members will be aware that the applicant was granted permission to build the barn structure a year ago in March 2025. The application form stated that the site could not be seen from a public road, public footpath, bridleway, or other public land. These photos show that the site is clearly visible along extended sections of public footpaths. In this application, submitted only 7 months after permission for the barn was given, it is now acknowledged that the site is visible from footpaths and proposes planting a screen of trees to attempt to soften the visual impact. However, given the height of the structure, it seems unlikely that this will ever be achieved. The barn has not been used for any substantive agricultural activity, and we are told an unspecified change in circumstances has led to this application. But by a stroke of luck, the structure is the perfect size for 4 paddle courts, reception area, shop, and changing rooms. While a barn is a structure one would expect to see in the AONB, and by supporting farming, helps to conserve and enhance the landscape and scenic beauty as required by paragraph 189 of the NPPF, this is not true of a paddle centre. Due to the negative visual impact, it conflicts with JCS policies SD6 and SD7, paragraphs 187 and 189 of the NPPF, and section 245 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023, which requires the Council as planning authority to seek to further the purpose of conserving and enhancing the natural beauty of the AONB. The site is located in an open field on the other side of the river Chelt from the main Dunkerton site. Access will cut across an important wildlife and nature corridor. In November 2024, an application to add a first floor extension to a house close to this site was refused because it would be overdevelopment and would fail to conserve or enhance the Cotswold National Landscape. This refusal was upheld on appeal. I imagine the owner of that property, like me, will be wondering why, given that refusal upheld on appeal, this application is being recommended for approval. After a number of iterations, the latest biodiversity calculation shows a net habitat loss of 87.36%. The bridge and path from the main site into the field will cut across a nature corridor. The bat survey identified that the site provides good quality bat foraging and commuting habitat along the Chelt and warns that the proposed footpath and bridge will result in habitat loss that could fragment and lower its value for foraging and commuting. Members will know that the UK is one of the most nature-deprived countries in the world. As I always seem to have on my desk an application to build in the AONB that would result in biodiversity loss, this is no surprise to me. The applicant has agreed to explore on-site biodiversity enhancements to reduce the quantity of off-site units that will need to be purchased. However, this will happen after tonight's decision has been made, and I will leave it to the committee to decide if this is a situation they are happy with. This application should be refused. However, I would be supportive of an application to build a paddle centre in a sustainable location. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just in your time. Okay, so we now come to members' questions. I would like to start off with a question. And although not a material planning act consideration for this application, it would be interesting from a holistic view of the site to know why such a substantially recently built barn, one of the most well-constructed barns I've ever seen, suddenly became redundant, conveniently allowing this new use to be considered. Could I ask, if the barn structure had not been in place, would this have influenced officers to a different response for the provision of a paddle courts?
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendation to grant permission is based on the circumstances of this case and the conversion of what is an existing building. If an application for a new building in this location for use as paddle courts were submitted, it would be subject to, additional considerations. So it's not really, you can't really make a direct comparison because they are two very different proposals.
Thank you. I understand the answer. Thank you very much for that response. Councillor Wheeler?
I'm not sure that this really would make a lot of difference to the application, in my eyes anyway. But Mr. Dunkerton said he had to remove ash trees because of ash dieback. Now, sadly, we don't have Mr. Schvaz with us today, but information that I've been given by some of the leading arboriculturalists say that unless they are unsafe and liable to cause injury, trees suffering from ash dieback should not be removed. It's better for the general health of trees if they are kept, because they may survive and it will improve the stock. Are there any officers that can answer that one?
We have our conservation officer, the ecology officer over there. Welcome, Sophie, to your first meeting of planning. Perhaps you'd like to answer the question.
Thank you. It's a really good question, and as much as you say, I'm not a tree officer, but I can comment on the fact that those trees were removed under a felling licence that we have seen, and all the trees that were removed were done and were permitted to be removed. And the planting that's proposed is far greater than what they need to do under that felling licence.
You want to come back?
Quickly. Do you say they were given permission to remove them or they were required to be removed?
I believe they applied for a felling licence and it was approved, but that's not something that we would be involved with.
Councillor Steinhardt.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm not usually a cynic, at least I don't think my wife will necessarily agree. But this scenario seems a bit strange, and I'd like some clarification over what can be done regarding building agricultural buildings in a Cotswold National Landscape or AONB. And are there any rulings about the size of these, or how long they can stay up for before change of use? That's part one, so maybe we could come back on that to start with. Thank you.
Yes, so there's the building was built as permitted development in this case. So before they can carry out works, they need to make an application to the council to see if prior approval is required. And as part of that prior approval process, we can take very specific things into account. In this case, it met all of those requirements, and so the decision was made that prior approval wasn't required, and so the building could be constructed. I mean, there's lots and lots of legislation. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to profess to know it all off the top of my head, but in this case, we're satisfied that the building is authorised.
Come back.
And then we're told there was then a change in circumstance. Do we know what that change in circumstance was, or was that nothing to do with the planning situation?
I don't know the background of those circumstances now.
And just, maybe I'll leave that for debate.
Councillor Derby.
Yeah, my questions are again of the officers really, with regard to some of the photographs which accompanied Councillor Day's presentation. It seems that there's some dispute about how visible this building is or will be in the future from the side of the Cotswold National Landscape. The visibility of the building for its purpose as an agricultural building was presumably considered when the original permission was granted by officers. Is the visibility from that side, from the side of the Cotswold National Landscape, which has been highlighted in those photographs that we've seen today, at all a material consideration or not?
As part of the prior approval process? No.
Sorry, Councillor Foster, I saw you first.
Thank you. I read all the materials that we've got on this, and it said that while in use, the doors would be shut when people were actually playing padel. But is the building itself going to be soundproofed? Or will there be a certain amount of noise coming out? Because as I understand it, environmental protection just covers whether it's a nuisance to people. But is it also a material consideration if this muffled bang bang also affects bats and other wildlife in the area.
I don't know the specifics of the actual build. That's not something that we would necessarily become involved in as part of the planning application. I don't know whether Sophie can comment on sort of noise and protected species.
Absolutely, we consider noise for protected species. The impacts to species such as bats and nocturnal species, it's more the vibration that would be any problems. But from a development this size and for something like Paddle, it's not something that has been identified as a problem in any legislation yet. So it's not something that we could object to. Thank you.
Councillor Bamford.
Thank you. I'm trying to explore a little further the question you asked, Chair. And I appreciate that it's very, very difficult for planning officers to comment at all on what is a hypothetical situation, because obviously that barn is there now. So you may say you can't do this, but if I pose it something like this, if you were faced with, if that barn wasn't there and you were faced with a fresh application for these Bedell courts, are there some other factors that you would have, I appreciate you can't review it on the spot, but are there some other factors that you may have wished to take into consideration?
So, I mean, I guess it's a very similar question to Councillor Barnes. I mean, the considerations would be very different because we would be considering the provision of a new building within the AONB. And, you know, the NPPF requires great weight to be given to conserving and enhancing the national landscape. So it is a completely different consideration. So it's not to say that absolutely there would be a blanket no and that it couldn't ever happen. But that's not something we've considered. You know, the building is there and that impact has occurred.
I've forgotten your name. Clark, Councillor Clark, sorry. A moment.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we occasionally have to deal with cheeky chappies. They're always chappies, where things get built and we're hand-tied. But I did notice you say that the doors are conditioned to be kept closed. Can we condition that the viewing terrace and its glazing stays exactly as it is on the plans? Because I think that would be very pleasant to sit out there on a summer's evening with a gallery and an open terrace where the glazing was sliding, or I just don't want to see it turned into a cocktail bar, because we've had cheeky people before who've done such things. And the second thing, hang on, I'm very old and I've forgotten what I was going to say. The signage. I find the signage excessively large. There's no reason, and none of the signage on that site is as large or as imposing. The Holland and Cooper, for example, is recessed and doesn't shine out to the A40. I know it's advertising of sorts, but I really find that's, for me, a step too far. The size of the lettering, it's not necessary. Nobody's going to stop on the way to Oxford and pop in for a game of paddle. It's kind of crazy, and I think it's too big.
Yes, so in terms of attaching a condition requiring the building to be carried out and maintained as it is, that forms part of, that's sort of covered in the approved plans condition. because the permission relates to those plans which show that layout and that mezzanine. So any deviation from that would need permission anyway.
My apologies, but we rarely go back and make somebody knock something down. I just want that on record, because we've been there before with very, very different applicants, very different buildings, but I'll accept that. Thank you.
Just on the signage as well, there is a condition that requires details of any signage to be submitted and approved.
Any other members with questions? Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, my question's regarding that other side of the Chelt there. Would nocturnal species have a problem if there's extra light pollution as a result of this building being there? Is there any lighting outside of the building proposed, or is it all self-contained, including the bridge?
Yeah, so just quickly, I mean, again, it's something that's covered by a condition, and it was on the ecologist's recommendation. So just hand over to Sophie and she might be able to give you a bit more comfort.
Yes, absolutely. Lighting will be a massive, it has been a really big consideration whilst looking at this application, and it is something that we'll need to see before and agree to before the construction of that bridge is started. Because I agree, we won't want any lights along the bridge there.
Oh,
Thank you. I noted that that Highways were quite concerned at first about the application and asked for a deferment, and but that later on they'd got greater clarity about the likely usage levels, and I just wondered what that clarity was and how that come about.
Yes, so it was a conversation that took place with Highways, where they sort of highlighted how many vehicle trips would be likely to take place in association with the paddle courts. And it is acknowledged that in their no objection comment, they don't talk about the sustainable sort of transport side of things. So I did go back to the officer, and he has simply said that following receipt of the further information about the likely increase in trips that they considered negligible in terms of impact on the highway, that negated the need for the development to invest in any public transport improvements because of the level of vehicle trips.
thank you. We'll go into debate now if any member wishes to comment. Councillor Wheeler?
Yeah, I very much appreciate the other works that Mr. Duncanton's doing for the environment. Fair play to him. However, I think we've all sort of touched on the point that we feel that we've been played a little bit on this, or a lot, that there was never any intention to use that as an agricultural building. It was just a shoehorn way of getting this application through. And with that in mind, had this application come as a more honest application from day one, I would have looked at it a lot more sympathetically. Having said that, I can't see any fair argument that we could use to refuse this. Officers have suggested that it's, they're recommending permit. And as I say, I can't think of a good reason to refuse it. But I do have to put down that marker that a number of people have mentioned. We have been played on this one, and I think I would have been much happier if Mr. Duncanton had put in an honest application in the first place. I would have looked on it a lot more sympathetically.
Thank you. I'm sure your comments are noted. Councillor Steinhardt.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree with my colleague, Councillor Wheeler, entirely. The barn's gone up. There's suddenly been a change of circumstance. We know not what. I would like to see a situation whereby if agricultural buildings do go up, that there is some sort of stop on changing their use for a number of years, maybe 5 years or so. That would actually stop the abuse of the system. I don't disagree that we all need exercise, and paddle's a very good sport, etc. And Mr. Duncan's done a lot for the local community and for Cheltenham, but I do think that the system is being somewhat abused. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steinhardt. I don't think at the moment there's anything we can do about putting a restriction on the timescales, but I'm sure we have our cabinet member who was here. Oh yeah, still is here. Maybe he would like to discuss with the MP about any changes to national policy on that. I don't know, but it's outside of our remit, unfortunately. So that would be the way it would have to go. So thank you for your comments. Any other member on the debate? Councillor Bamford.
I'm not going to disagree with either Councillor Wheeler or Councillor Steinhardt. I will be voting for this because I think the planning officers have made it crystal clear that that is the right decision in planning terms. So I am supporting this application very reluctantly.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, I'm just wondering where we came up with the, I don't know the extent of the land that is owned by the applicant, where the 36 trees came from. Why would it not be a lot more if he has land extending further north, or does he not?
That's a question which would have been helpful to have had earlier, but I will take it now and I'll ask Sophie if she'll answer it for us.
Though the trees that are proposed are outside of BNG and outside of any requested ecological enhancements for this application, they're just what they've proposed extra. I have said that we need to achieve some net gain on the site, which has been agreed now, so that's great. But there is enough land to make a good net gain for biodiversity, and that has been conditioned to the application.
Okay. Any other member wishing to join the debate? I think therefore we may have come to a suitable point to take a vote on this. I understand all your concerns. I don't think there's anything that Michelle wants to contribute. I'll ask Chris Gond to comment before we take the vote.
Thank you, Chair. It's already been said by a few members, but just to reiterate the point that suspicion or speculation about an applicant's motives are not a material planning consideration. The committee cannot take that into account this evening, nor is the committee considering whether the building is lawful, whether it's authorised, because it is. The members are solely assessing an application for a material change of use and the impact of that change of use. That's the only matters the committee is assessing.
Thank you for that, Chris. It's very appropriate to say that. So we will come to the vote. Will you please vote for or against or abstain? Is everybody voting? I think we should have 11 votes. Will you please refrain from making any contributions from the gallery, please? That's 9 for, none against, and 2 abstentions. Thank you very much indeed. That has been approved. So. Please, this is a planning meeting and not a discussion forum, so please. We now move on to our second item. You're taking this one. Okay, the next item is the Cheltenham Library. It's here because of the fact that it's a county council application, so we are having to deal with it. So I'll ask Chris Gomm if he will introduce it for us, please. Oh, sorry.
Can you unplug and plug in again?
Go ahead.
It's working fine. Yeah, it's only on one. We'll go into presentation mode. I'm plugging and plugging in.
Makes no sense, does it?
You change the
Duplicate.
Bear with us for a moment. We're having technical issues.
What about system? It's awfully erratic.
Yeah.
Here we go. That's it.
Good.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. So this is a listed building application which is seeking consent to install 11 new windows, or replacing 11 windows in the first storey of the rear elevation of Cheltenham Library. The application's been submitted by the County Council and hence is before committee this evening. So I'm sure members are familiar with the library. So the application relates to the building here, or this end of the building. And as I say, this is an application for listed building consent. So here we can see the existing northeast elevation to the rear elevation. So the windows in question are aluminium fitted, or aluminium frames fitted into timber subframes. And the proposal is to remove the aluminium frames, leave the timber subframes and insert new aluminium frames and glazing, essentially a like-for-like replacement. The windows in question are the top windows along here. Hopefully you can see. I think I might just add, bear with me a sec. Hopefully you can see the laser pointer now. So the windows in question are this top run of windows here. So the top casements in effect. along the top there. The proposal doesn't relate to any of the other windows at all, just these top openings. So they will all, as I say, they will all be replaced, taken out and replaced on a like-for-like basis with new aluminium frames. And this just shows the floor plan, showing again where those replacement windows are, and probably more useful, we can see the new windows there, sections. So you can see sections here of the new windows, and then the in elevation form. So the key planning matters are impact on heritage assets, design and public benefits. Clearly these are a like-for-like replacement. No harm is considered to result. The windows that are to be removed are non-original, as I say, aluminium windows. So they're not the historic original windows in the listed building. And they're being replaced, and in doing that replacement, it will secure the future of the building going forward. So it's acceptable in heritage impact terms, it's acceptable in design terms, and that the public benefits are clear in improving this public building. So the recommendation is to grant listed building consent subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. There are no public speakers, so any members' questions to the officers? Councillor Wheeler?
Don't think it will make any difference to my vote, but can I just ask why they're being changed? Are the new ones thermally broken, whereas the old ones weren't, or are they just deteriorated, or?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my understanding is that they've deteriorated to a point that they're leaking essentially air, so they're not providing the sort of thermal requirements that they should.
Thank you. That is detailed in the report. Any other questions? Any members? Okay. We'll go into debate if there's any debate. It looks like there isn't. So I don't think there's anything for you to come back on, Chris. So we'll go with the vote on the electronic voting. All those for, please show. Against. One against. Yeah. Right, okay. We have a complete cast list voting, so it's 11 for, none against, no abstentions. That is approved. Thank you very much indeed. I think the agenda goes on to item 7, which is the appeal updates, which is for your attention. Item 8, any items that are urgent or require a decision, there are none. So I will formally close the meeting, and the next scheduled meeting is Thursday, 23rd of April.